There we go. All right, so hey guys, what's going on? James here, and welcome back to another live stream. I am joined today by Brent and Ren. It is the co-host of the PewterCast. Guys, how are you?
We're doing great, guys. How's it going?
It's going pretty good, right?
Never been better. Excited to be on. First time having a conversation with James, and looking forward to it. I will not be playing PUBG, by the way.
I am really happy to have you guys on because I've seen your guys' show, the PewterCast went on, and like I was telling Brent earlier, you guys are doing this current series where it's like the off-season tour. And Ren, you don't like the name of that, but still, I'm curious. Like that's actually the first thing I want to talk to you guys about is kind of your own show and links to Brent's Twitter, Ren's Twitter, PewterCast Twitter, and the podcast itself are all going to be down in the description below. But the first thing I want to talk to you guys about is, you've both been able to go to these training camps and whatnot, and you have this whole kind of mini series dedicated to just going around and being a part of all these Buccaneers experiences and whatnot. How has that been so far for both of you? You guys can take turns answering this question, but like, how's it been like going to these training camps and watching practices and stuff like that? Do you feel like the experiences have been good, bad, somewhere in between? Just kind of give me your overall thoughts about that.
Well, I think my initial thought is, hey, go back and check out our episodes and find out exactly how it's been.
Dun, dun. Next question.
No, it's been fun. We've had access to some things this summer due to me being a season ticket holder, season pass holder. So that's given us some access. We've also been able to develop a relationship with some people within the organization, and getting to talk to them has given us some access to some things. We are not credentialed media, so we don't have unfettered access. Well, the media has fettered access, but you know what I mean. Like we're not able
We don't
to
have
go
top clearance.
Yeah, we're not that. So there's a little bit where I'm kind of okay with that because we're fans and we want to keep it as fans, and so being able to be a part of those like the draft party, there were lots of different draft parties, a couple different things that we could have done there. And this year we decided to go to the one at the stadium, the official one put on by the Buccaneers. And they were gracious enough to let us actually bring the recording equipment in, which is typically a big no-no. Ren and I, we were literally popping around the stadium, like recording in different spots, around the stadium, which was kind of fun. And then we got to do a tour of One Buck Place and actually recorded a couple episodes in there. There's actually an episode that we recorded way back then. I think it's the one about the tour, Ren.
Yeah.
That one is set to come out. We're in what I call this long, dark night of football, where there's nothing that's going to be happening. So I've kind of held that one back a little bit. So there's just been some fun things that we've been able to get to be a part of. I think it's captured our off season fairly well and helped us move forward. And, who knows what it'll be next year. It wasn't like this last year. So we'll see. But for this off season, it's been fun.
I think it all depends on sort of how many of these things you've been to. Like, I remember the first time I ever went to a training camp practice, I was like a kid in a candy store. And I wasn't so much like, hey, there's Jameis. Oh, my God. Like, hey, there's Mike Evans. I was like, hey, look, there's Rick Stroud. Hey, look, there's Greg Allman. Like, oh, my God. Like, it's Steve Isbitz. Look. Oh, my God, Scott Reynolds. Like, oh, it's Mark Cook. Oh, okay, whatever. So, and then last year I went to every open training camp you could, except for military day. Obviously, it's not obviously, but I've never been in the military, so am not in the military, so I didn't go to that one. So showing up for these 2 days of minicamp, day 1 and day 2 of minicamp, yeah, it was fun because it's the first time you get to see the Bucs this year. And, some of those questions were answered when everybody was in camp. Like, is JPP going to be on the starting D line? Where is okay, now Brent Grimes is in camp. Who's starting outside corner? Who's playing nickel? So those things were great. And then day 2 with the lightning scare, and they moved it into the indoor facility. That was a lot of fun. It seemed like it just felt like you're a little more freer to move around. It seemed like a little bigger. You weren't sort of anybody's way when you're moving around. You were much, much closer to the players. If there was any sort of position drill, you wanted to get up closer. You could actually hear what the coaches were saying, or at least sort of make out what they're saying. You could get that close to them. So that was, a lot of fun. But as far as like, good experience, bad experience, how do they treat you? They're always really nice. Like the staff is always been really nice. And, not to be, like one of those curmudgeon media guys that you hear, and then you hear them sort of complain about, oh, I got to do like 30 straight days of Bucs minicamp. And everyone's like, you get paid to watch football for a living. Yeah. And it's my favorite team. Like, shut up. But, I've gotten to the point where it's like, it's freaking hot. Like, this is hot.
Have you,
and when you watch a practice, after you sort of get over the awe of being there and seeing everything, and, the surrealness wears off, there's really only about 30 minutes of practice that are worth watching. And those like the 7-on-7s, the 11-on-11s, and the rest of the time when they're in position drills and and the music's blaring and you're sort of like, or maybe they're going helmets off quarter speed, you're kind of just like, all right. Like, that's when you sort of look down your phone or you talk to somebody, go grab an icy pop. Overall, yeah, it's a lot of fun as being a Buck fan. But it's hot.
I was gonna say, Ren, you've hit the point now where you're just like, business as usual, right? just kind of going in, doing your job, and then heading out. I was gonna say, I think it's cool that you guys can go to these, because it's, it's kind of like you get to see and hear some stuff that like isn't, it's not brought up all the time. I like Ren, I remember in the latest episode of your podcast, you were talking about how Mike Evans was sitting, basically right in front of you, in a situation where it's like, you get to see how like Mike Evans decides like, oh, maybe this isn't a good idea that I'm sitting here right in front of all these fans. Maybe I should get up. It's kind of cool that you get to see that personal side of them, right? And you also said in the podcast, you can hear the coaches, and you just said that a few seconds ago, where it's like you can hear Buckner talking to the defensive line. You can see McCoy is also taking charge as a leader, and it's whereas at surface value, a lot of people say like, oh, Gerald McCoy, he isn't a very strong leader, this, that, and the other. Would you guys say that, like, just from like your own experiences now showing up, and it's like, would you say that like guys who might not get as much credit as they do they step up as leaders? Guys like McCoy, like Quan, like even Levante David, do they kind of like try and tutor guys more than other people lead on, or is that kind of more true?
Well, let me start this. I want to back up, and I'm gonna. I'm just gonna say this. I think that I have the best co-host out of any Buccaneers podcast out there in Ren. He does a really fantastic job. Agreed. Especially with these practices. He's humble too, especially like with the training camp diaries, which we're planning on those coming back again, of not just saying, hey, here's what's happening on the field, which, by the way, that's what you're getting from Greg Allman and Trevor Sikkema and Scott Reynolds and Mark Cook and Steve Idsbus and Ira Kaufman and Rick Stroud. Like, we're all hearing what's going on the field. That's fine. Ren does a great job of taking us as fans, us as listeners, and placing us in the stands and seeing practice, like audibly though, because we're an audio podcast. So it's I think that's part of what makes that whole piece different. So kudos to Ren for how he does that. To answer your question though, I want to be clear about something, because we've talked about Gerald on our show quite a bit. I think Gerald he's a good leader. I have kind of phrased him as a second chair leader, which is, it's still a leader. He's still leading. He's just not that out front guy. Yeah. He's the guy who is, and you can see that when they're working. And Ren did a great job on our last episode of talking about that quite a bit as well, with how he was interacting with Buckner, and how he and Buckner would sit there and work together with something, and then Gerald would turn around and basically, pull the other guys along. Like that is leading. That's a fantastic thing to do. Yeah. And those are the kinds of things that you really only get to see, if you get to go to training camp. And unfortunately, they don't see them every day. So you have to be, you have to be there every day to catch the whole story of what's actually happening.
Yeah. And you know, it's hard. It's obviously pretty much impossible to go to every single training camp unless it is your job. Um, you know, us, like, you know, we're all fans, so like it's, you know, we have our other lives that we have to live, so it is kind of hard to go to all these training camps and kind of get that whole story. So I do appreciate, you know, you guys that you do on your podcast, where you kind of are able to paint a more clear picture of what goes on in these types of practices and whatnot. You know, I do like that. The next thing I do want to talk about actually is so we're kind of like what you were saying earlier, Brent. We're in like a very dark, dead period of the off season. And I wanted to talk a little bit because I asked some of my subscribers to submit topics, you know, and you know what we should just talk about, us three should talk about, and they wanted to. One of the main things that they wanted to talk about was cornerback battles. You know, have there been any cornerbacks that have impressed you guys? Just maybe in terms of like overall secondary for both of you, because I know they just cut Maurice Fleming. He tore his shoulder labrum. He's out for a while. But have there been any like dark horses? Like, you know, like we all three know that there's going to be like big battles between like Vernon Hargreaves III, MJ Stewart, Carlton Davis, and at the safety position, guys like Chris Conti, Keith Tandy, Justin Evans, Jordan Whitehead. Is there anybody who's kind of like coming up surprising you guys, or is it kind of like that's been the main focus? Or are those guys all battling each other?
Well, two dark horses I would go with, one at cornerback and one at safety. It's this kid Rivers. I don't have his first name with me.
It's David.
Yeah, sounds right. You know, Coach Cutter's talked to him a little bit about him sometimes after, you know, mini camp or OTA practices. So he's flashed. I've you know, witnessed a couple of plays where it's like, oh, who's that guy? And then at the safety position, Igwebuike. I always want to call him Donald Igwebuike because he was the Bucs kicker way back in the day, but this is like his cousin or nephew or something. The Bucs, you know, they tend to do this. There's one guy they sort of break the bank for as an undrafted free agent to get him in camp because they think he has a great chance of making the team. And this year it was Igwebuike. So those would be two guys to look for. Now, but you're right. Mostly what the battle is going to be, it's going to be who's going to take that outside corner spot when Vernon moves inside of the nickel. Because on both days that I went to minicamp, when all 90 players were there, that's exactly what happened. What they talked about during the offseason, Mike Smith said, well, you know, this is what we want to do with Vernon. You know, in a base defense, he starts outside. They bring in three wide. He moves in. When we were there day one, it was Carlton Davis III was starting outside. You know, and he was playing press man coverage while on the opposite side, Brent Grimes was playing off a bit. But then when I went for day two, which ended up being the indoor practice, Ryan Smith was the starting outside when they went to nickel package. So if you want to look like what's the big battle, I think that's going to be it. MJ Stewart flashed a little bit for me on the second day, but, you know, I don't really know if that's enough sort of to unseat Vernon as the nickel. So that's what we're going to have to see. But if you're looking for somebody to make a splash as far as the secondary, Rivers and Igwebuike would be the guys I would keep an eye on who might unseat some of the, you know, like maybe Igwebuike makes it and they end up getting rid of Tandy. Something like that could possibly happen. Now, we're way, way, way far away from that. Yeah. But as far as like, you know, lesser guys you may not have heard of, those two guys have you know, you can see them flash, and they've come up, you know, more than once in when talking to the coaches.
Ren, James, I'm sorry, I don't mean to steal your show, but Ren, let me ask you a question that we've never had a chance to talk about this same subject. Fast forward a year, Brent Grimes' contract is out, and he's not renewing again.
Right.
Vernon Hargreaves, MJ Stewart, I suppose is a nickel, and Carlton Davis. Ryan Smith, Vernon Hargreaves, and then MJ Stewart. Is that our cornerback crew? You
Next
think?
year?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if they don't draft or bring somebody in, type of deal, we'll have to see how this year goes. But if none of these guys fall on their faces, you project sort of like the receiving core. Next year, project the receiving core. Well, we're not going to sign or keep Deshaun Jackson because he's too expensive. We got to sign Quan. We got to sign Alley. We got to sign Donovan. We got to sign Jameis. So there's like $11 million. So you can see it being Evans, Godwin, and this new kid Watson possibly in the slot. Because Adam Humphrey is a free agent next year. Same thing with the backs. Like, you can see if you're just in what's in front of you, you're probably looking at like if I had to guess right now, I would think it would be Hargraves, Davis outside, and then I'm not really sure. See, MJ Stewart's such a mystery right now because he's pretty exclusively a nickel corner.
Right.
So does Vernon stay outside and he's learned enough where he can take over for the nickel? Or does MJ Stewart sort of just be this fourth nickel that is kind of a utility guy and where Ryan Smith fits in? But at base defense, like you said, if we're going to fast forward, I would put my money on a Hargraves Davis outside set right now.
Yeah.
Way early.
I would agree with that too. Because I remember this. I feel the Bucs have had a pretty good off season as well. Just kind of. A lot of people kind of criticize a handful of their moves, but especially kind of the secondary position, a lot of people feel like, oh, we didn't do enough. But I feel like they've kind of Jason Light. I like what he did this year because he set us up for the future rather than like really trying to gun hard to have us win now. Like he could have very easily had a situation where he just throws a ton of money. He ends up trying to get rid of a lot of bad contracts, I guess you could say, and just trying to do everything he can to win now. But I thought he did a really good job balancing it. And one of the big things I loved about it was spending those 2 second-round draft picks on the corners, like what you were saying a few seconds ago, Ren. It's like MJ Stewart's a big mystery, but to me and a lot of Bucs fans, I'm sure you guys have been hearing, is like a lot of people like Carlton Davis. He's definitely been getting like a lot of positive praise, not just from the fans, but also from the coaching staff as well. And he's showing that he can be like a potential big corner for us later on down the line. So I really like, I think we all three agree. It's like, after Grimes leaves, because he's pretty much a lock to leave after this season. Hargraves, Davis, Stewart are definitely going to be like at least our top 3 next season, and whatever we decide to do with the cornerback position later on. But that's what I liked so much about this offseason so far, is that we won't be completely screwed. A lot of people were saying, a lot of people earlier on in the offseason were saying like, oh, get rid of Hargraves, he's a bum, he's terrible. And I would sit there and I would think to myself like, are you sure? Are you sure we want to do that? Because that really, I don't know how that would work, because it would look really bad in terms of depth,
Yeah, that's something I always ask when, like, Donovan Smith, he's terrible, get rid of him. Okay, replace him with who? That's the question you have to ask. Hargraves is terrible, get rid of him. Okay, replace him with who?
Yeah.
It's like you have to sort of think it through, and, and the salary cap, comes into the situation as well. And I think the only reason Grimes doesn't come back next year is because the Bucs don't want to pay him $10 million. I'm sure if he can play, they'd love to have him back. But once again, sort of like I talked about earlier, these contracts they need to extend, they're going to have to find money places. Now, remember, we had like $90 million going into this offseason. It's all gone. Like, it's all gone. So, so there's no room to go, oh, we should have got Patrick Peters or the cornerback from the Chiefs. It's not Patrick Peters, is it?
Marcus Peters?
I know he got Marcus Peters. Thank you. Yeah, he got traded or whatever, and it's like we should go after him and done this, and then, and now that it's finally over as far as the offseason, all the big moves, you look at it, it's like, oh, like you said, it's balanced. There's everyone's set up for the future. I mean, there's not really a spot on the team right now where you can go, okay, you look at it, what's the plan for next year? Like, it's already there. Like, wide receivers there. Maybe the offensive line, especially the right side. You could talk about Benedict and Dotson and Kappa and Wester and those guys. Sweezy certainly comes into that mix. But besides, the right side of the offensive line, it's just like they're set and they have depth. Like, it's Jason has done a really good job of improving this roster from 4 years ago.
And I'll tell you, I'm never a fan of judging a player after their second year of being in the league, Hargraves is a bum, Smith is a bum, the other Smith is a bum, the other Smith is a bum because we've got 18 different Smiths on this team. Like, let's give them to the end of their contract, especially if you're in, you have somebody playing cornerback in the defense that we had last year, behind the line that we had last year. Like, come on, man, let's wait and see how it plays out before I full on just go, oh, he's a bum, let's get rid of him. The Roberto Aguayo thing, maybe we could have pulled the trigger on that one a little sooner than we did. However, in general, the idea of, let's give them the run of that rookie contract before we actually judge them and look to get rid of them. I'm all for always trying to get the upgrade, but I'm not gonna berate somebody after their second year in the league, especially a guy like Ryan Smith. I mean,
didn't play defensive snap his rookie year.
Right.
Never stepped on the field on the defense.
Right. And he stepped in and beat out Hargraves for the spot on the outside last year and, had a rough go of it. Let's make no bones about it. But who knows what's going to happen this year? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Speaking specifically on Hargraves, a lot of people were, last year he came on pretty strong as well, kind of like switching back into the nickel. Do you guys, and especially what Mike Smith has said recently, like what you guys were saying earlier about how they want to use him kind of in a hybrid role where playing him outside and playing him at nickel too. Do you think that's something Hargraves can do? Because one thing that my subscribers were saying that they wanted us to talk about was kind of like Hargraves' confidence improving in camp and whatnot. Do you guys think that he's like kind of suited for that kind of role of playing also outside and the nickel as well? Or do you feel more he's like, do you guys think he should just stay at like specifically nickel cornerback or specifically stay on the outside, or do you think he can do both?
I guess I'll take that one. Well, he, from what I've seen this year, and sort of last year when he moved into the nickel, and he kind of gets it incomplete because he got hurt. He seems to be more comfortable on the inside. I'm no NFL coach, so I don't evaluate players and break them down. So I can't say well, his skill set because of this correlates better to outside and does inside. He looks more comfortable inside. He makes more plays on the inside. I don't think his confidence has waned on the inside as it has on the outside. But then you can take it back to when Grimes was hurt, and then Vernon had to play the left side of the defense, probably had his best game ever as a defender as the left outside cornerback. So, like Brent said, it's hard to, put these guys in a box only after 2 years. You would like all of your players to come out like Lattimore for the Saints last year. Oh, okay, well, defensive rookie of the year, great player, but you only get gets one of those. Like most of the guys, especially like at defensive end, defensive tackle, cornerback, those guys struggle. High draft picks struggle, and they take a little longer. Now, I am not here to defend Vernon Hargraves on his play. All I'm saying is that we'll just have to wait and see. But from what I've seen, I like Hargraves better in the nickel. Now, is Hargraves the second best outside corner? We'll find out, and we're going to find out pretty soon.
Yeah. And then, Brent, I actually wanted to ask you, because a lot of people in the chat right now are saying, I feel like every time I do like a live stream, a large portion of it is just so much hate for Mike Smith, right?
Sure.
and Brent, do you feel a lot of that hate is like justified for the most part? Because I'll be honest, me personally, I was not too impressed with what Mike Smith was doing last year, but you could also make the argument that he didn't have a good bit of pieces that he needed for his defense to work. Do you got Brent, do you like what's going on with like Mike Smith? Do you feel that he deserves like an opportunity to have another full season, or if he starts off bad, should we kind of can him mid-season? Like, what are your thoughts on just Mike Smith in general and like how he runs his defense and whatnot? Because he plays cornerbacks off. He rotates safe. I hate rotating safeties, by the way. He hates he rotates safeties. He rotates defensive linemen, which kind of makes sense. But like all in all, how do you feel about like Mike Smith as just an overall defensive coordinator? And I know that's a really loaded question.
Yeah,
And
because
go.
there's so many facets to that. I will say this. Last season when we brought Mike Smith back, we said on our show he is the best non-free agent signing that the Buccaneers had, because we came off the back of that 5-game win streak. You finally had that winning season back in 2016.
16.
Is that right? 2016.
Yeah.
But let's face it, Mike Smith's defense for the first half of that year was not good.
Yeah.
And then it was great the second half of that year. And then all last year, we still don't know what happened last year. We don't. I mean, bad chemistry, bad juju, bad whatever. We didn't really change a whole lot between 2016 and 2017 and personnel-wise. It really was about the same team, a handful of people. Outside of that, it was the same. The coaching staff was the same. They only changed one coach on the defensive side of the ball. So, and granted, that coach is a pretty big deal, and Brenson Buckner now on the D-line and getting rid of Jay Hayes. Is that one change going to be the thing that sparks this defense to turn it around and do something and still have Mike Smith in control? I don't know. I have set back with a policy this year of saying I'm waiting to judge the offseason moves of this team. And by the way, I think that also probably includes the offseason non-moves, meaning we're keeping the same guys and the same coaching staff until about week 6 of the season. That does not mean I'm not excited for this year. I am super excited for football. I am stoked, and I am behind my team. But I cannot sit here and say, with full confidence that Mike Smith is a defensive guru and he's a genius, and I like exactly how he's running all of his defensive stuff. Well, what I can sit back and say is he has a history of being really, really terrible. He also has a history of doing something pretty, pretty special. What are we going to get this year? I don't know. Yeah. I just
cautiously optimistic, right?
Yeah. And okay, so to go back to the Vernon Hargreaves thing. All right, so he's our second best outside guy, so we're going to play him outside, except for when we move to a nickel. He's a better nickel, so we're going to move him in and bring in the third guy for the outside. So now what you have is Vernon Hargreaves, the guy who's coming off of a down year, he's coming off of an injured year, and he's coming off of a year where he got pretty much beat up. And you're going to have him learn essentially two positions. Like, that's not doing him a favor by leaving him in one spot and say, learn this spot, master this spot. Because look, he's a first-round pick. We're going to put him in a slot. Great. You don't draft a slot corner in the first round. Everybody knows that. But at this point, we've already drafted him. If he's a better slot guy than he is an outside guy, then damn it, put him in the slot. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's no unless you just really have this thing that, man, Vernon's going to do something special and we're going to get him and, kind of bounce him between these two positions, and that's going to be great. I don't know. I don't know if that's the best idea or not. I got to be honest with you. It seems kind of neat. I get the concept behind it. I'm with you on that. I don't like rotating my guys out a whole lot. Who was that old defensive coordinator we had, or the defensive line guy we had under Kiffin? Was it Mariucci? Is that who it was? Who was like
not Mariucci.
Marinelli.
Rod Marinelli.
Yeah. Who basically, like, for Warren Sapp and those defensive line guys, like, you have to die in order to come out of the game. And JPP's coming into this organization having played, what was it, 98% of the snaps? No, it wasn't. It was like 92% of the snaps last year.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like, well, we rotate guys down here. And he's like, yeah, let's see what happens. Let our guys play.
Yeah.
Let them freaking play. And I understand the idea of rotating. I don't know. I'm just an old school guy. I like that. As long as they're working, let them get in there and work. Yeah. So I don't know. I answer your question by saying I don't know.
Yeah.
I see what's happening. We'll judge. I'll tell you this. I'm sorry. We'll tell you this. We will judge how he does come December of next year.
That's fair.
Maybe earlier.
Yeah.
I don't think we should fire him mid-season. I'm not a big fan of mid-season changes. Let him play it out and see what happens. Because if we fired him halfway through the middle of his first year in 2016, we would have never had that great second half.
That's true. That's true.
You know.
Ren, what do you think about it? About just the entirety of the situation with like Mike Smith and rotating players and whatnot?
I'm sort of okay. Yeah. Back to sort of what Brett said, echoing that, everyone was super ecstatic about bringing Mike Smith back before last year. Yeah. He's a 2-time NFL Coach of the Year. He hasn't forgotten how to coach. He's forgotten more football than I'll ever know. But his defense was terrible last year. At the end of the day, it has to fall at his feet. Pick up one of a handful of statistics. The Bucs were last in defensively. And it seemed like, once again, the big bugaboo was one of two things. One was communication, which I don't understand. It's like, is the defense written in Sanskrit, or are our players just extra not smart, or is your defense like trying to read, Ulysses? It's just a bear.
Yeah.
So, like, it's a make it or break it year for Mike Smith, I think, as a coach in his NFL career. And I think that urgency sort of ramped up. I don't really have anyone I'd like to replace besides Mike Smith, except for maybe Wade Phillips. I think that Wade Phillips is the best defensive coach in football and has been for a decade. Mm-hmm. And I think the players are hungry this year, and they get it. It's almost like last year they kind of felt like, we're the Bucs, everyone's picking us, we can just, sort of toss our helmet out on the field, and we're gonna win 9 games this year. Watch us, here we go. And I don't want to say they didn't put in the work, but like I said, I went to all the training camps. Like, the passion I saw in day 1 and day 2 of minicamp, and sort of like the level of these guys are going at it, competing with each other, is not anywhere close to the level that was last year's training camp. And I mean, it's ramped up this year. I'm just hoping last year was just sort of an outlier for the entire organization, including, the staff, the coaching staff, the players. Somebody needed to sort of snap these guys out of it last year, and it didn't happen. And now I think it has. I get the hate towards Mike Smith, but I'm sorry not to sort of answer the question. I think we'll wait and see. I think the Bucs defense has to be better, and we're going to find out real quick. These first 5 games, are tough ones. We got the Bears, and then like all division winners, I think, in those first 5 games. Yeah. So we're going to find out real quick. But I do like the direction it's going. I did like the on-field communication I saw at minicamp when they were running, the 11-on-11s. I think that the arrow is trending up, but the bar was set so low last year, it almost has to be trending up.
Yeah.
So
there's basically nowhere else to go but up, right?
Yeah, exactly. So make no bones about it. The way the season's going to go this year is going to ride on the shoulders of the defense. Like, mark my words. Oh, yeah. The defense is going to have to show up this year like they did in that 5-game win streak. Like, they're going to have a more consistent – yeah, you're going to have 1 or 2 games where you're – what the hell happened there? I don't know. But you just sort of move on. But that needs to be more of the consistent play. And if it's not, then, we're looking like 6-10 right in the face again.
Yeah, and I definitely feel at that point, things would definitely blow up for the coaching staff. And speaking of that, a lot of people, like what you just said, Ren, you said that, you couldn't really think of a replacement for Mike Smith besides like Wade Phillips. That'd be a great replacement. A lot of fans feel that, like, if things don't work out with Mike Smith, it's like, oh, well, Brentson Buckner's here, The Cardinals players were saying on Twitter, this guy is a future defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I'm going to stop you right there. Sorry. Yeah, and that's exactly where they're getting their information. A couple of Cardinals players like him, he's going to be defensive coordinator next year. Okay, Mike Smith falters for the first couple of, let's say the Bucs go 1-3 out the gate. fire Mike Smith. We'll just move Brenton Buck. Brenton Buckner knows absolutely nothing about being a defensive coordinator. I don't even know if he has his own defense. Does he have a scheme? Does it, he doesn't, he's not there yet. Yeah, possibly, can he be? Sure. But just because a couple of players like him, you can't take that and be like, okay, here's the next one. It's just so much more goes into it. You don't know where he is as far as development of coach and even of his overall scheme of defense and what he likes to run and how is he going to preach it, how is he going to teach it, and how is he going to learn it. It's a lot easier teaching. When I was there, yeah, he's in charge of defensive line, but Brenton Buckner was just with the defensive tackles. So really, his hands-on was like 6-7 guys. Now you got to expand that to 45 guys during training camp, sometimes 48 around there. So this talk where if Mike Smith falters, what is slide Brenton Buckner in? You have no idea what you're talking about. You have no idea what kind of defensive coordinator is going to be. What? Because Tyrann Mathieu said he'd be a good defensive coordinator. That's what you're hanging your hat on. Hey, Tyrann Mathieu says he'd be a good defensive coordinator. Come on, Jason Light, get off your butt, do the right thing. You don't know what you're talking about.
Ren,
Ren, I will tell you, that storyline will make a fantastic movie one day.
Great.
It's a good Hollywood plot point.
Ren.
That's what it is. And that's why it's sexy. That's why people love it. Because I did the same thing when Brenton Buckner came in, and you start listening, and you're like, man, I like this guy. Yeah, is it? I mean, hell, I even sat there and went, is it possible if Dirk Cutter sucks this thing up that he just hired his replacement? I skipped Mike Smith and I said Dirk Cutter. Now, I said that in the back of my head.
Brenton Buckner for president.
I did not say it into this microphone until right now. So. Okay. I'm not saying that that's what we should do because Ren is 100% right. He's not there yet. I don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe he's got some of that. But we can't judge him because he goes out and he yells at Gerald McCoy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's just it's this reason why people like Carlton Davis. Our defensive backfield was not very good. What they all have in common? They're all short. They're not that big. What is Carlton Davis? He's 6'1". 210. As soon as he was drafted, everyone's like, finally, he became he was like, okay, this is the guy. And for the very short amount of period that he's been there, he has backed it up, which is nice. It's the same thing with Brenton Buckner. It's like, why do they like him? Because he's the exact opposite of Jay Hayes, whose defensive line was terrible. He's just not Jay Hayes right now. You have no idea how the defensive line is going to do. You have no idea if they're even going to take to this coach. You have no idea what you're talking about, and you're putting this guy on the dollar bill. Stop it.
Listen, guys, we've already made this mistake once. His name was Raheem Morris, right?
Oh, no, that was a money move. Ooh. That was a Glazers not want to pay anybody.
Right. No, but you took a guy who was highly unqualified and skipped him a couple of steps and put him in there. Listen, I would love to see Brenton Buckner go on and become a defensive coordinator and possibly even a head coach one day in the NFL. That would be fantastic. Will it be with the Bucs? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Is it going to happen this season if Mike Smith falters and Dirk Cutter falters? We're going to jump him up there? No. But, I'm glad to watch him, go along that process to become that and turn into that. But, to look for it this year, unless it's something really special and seriously, we're going to make a movie about this one day. Not looking for it to happen.
Ren, that is the most fired up I think anybody has ever been on this channel ever, and I appreciate that so much.
You're welcome. Go back and listen to some of the prior PewterCast episodes.
I love that. That was, that leads me to what I was going to say about it was For Brenton Buckner, a lot of people say that he was the best, one of the best, if not the best moves of this offseason. And this is kind of a question for both of you guys. Brent, you can start. Do you guys kind of feel like Buckner is having as big of an impact as a lot of people have said he's supposedly having, or do you feel it's kind of like he's just a defensive line coach? Like a lot of people are saying he's going to be the reason that we're going to have a dominant defensive line. He's going to be the reason the Bucs are finally going to have their first 10-sack player since back in 2005 with Simeon Rice. Do you guys kind of feel that's more so the case, or do you feel it's kind of like it's just the player's raw talent over Buckner's ability to coach, or do you feel that Buckner is going to be the reason why this defensive line is, if the Buccaneers defensive line is dominant, do you feel Buckner's going to be the reason, or just the fact that
the players?
Yeah. essentially like that?
My answer is yes. All of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Next question.
Yeah, no, I mean Buckner is having a huge impact. Make no mistake about it. Watching him, seeing what he's doing out there on the field, Ren talked about it earlier, and I'll 100% back it up. You got there to camp, you got there to the building, and in fact, I was just talking to a guy yesterday. He called me, and I said, he's my ticket guy, and I said, hey, Bill, just out of curiosity, what's the feeling there in the building from your side? You're in ticket sales, And he's like, man, I got to tell you, it's so different from last year. Like, even in our office, the feel, the air of everything is so different. Is that because of Brenson Buckner? I don't know if it's because of him, but he is certainly a part of that, if that makes sense. But the other side of it's true. You still have to have the horses. You still got to have the guys that are able to do it. And you got to have somebody who knows how to harness them. We talk about in the draft that there's this magic algorithm of team need versus best player available, and where those two things intersect, that's who you draft. When you talk about success of the D-line, it's this magic thing between the way the coaches are coaching and how they're putting their players into position versus the actual talent of the players. Bad news bears, the cool running stories, those things are few and far between, where you take somebody who really has no talent, and they have the Mighty Ducks. They happen to win because they go back to basics or something like that. No, you've got to have some talent to get out there and actually play with the best. Yes, it is the players. Yes, I do think Brenson Buckner is having a huge impact. Is it one over the other? I don't know. I think it's just some weird amalgam of both.
Yeah.
He is hard not to watch coach.
Yeah.
It's just something that you notice him out there. You see him working. It feels like he's the most intense coach. It feels like that his players are paying the most attention to him. It feels like he's getting the most done when all the position drills are going on. Now, is that fair or unfair? I don't care. I'm telling you the way it looks and how it feels. Now, is he the reason we're going to get 10 sacks? Maybe. I think it's more going to come down to talent, from what Jason Light brought in. But I sort of now want to echo what Brett said. Like, he's definitely a part of it. And if, the Bucs do get 10, and like Brenson Buckner said in one of his interviews, like, I don't care about 10 sacks. Like, I want wins. And he's right. And I think Buck fans would be happy too if the Bucs go 11-5, make the playoffs, and the highest sack total is 8. I don't think I'm really going to care. It's like we want to get into the playoffs. That's sort of like the sort of the next step for Buck fans. It's like, I don't care what the record is. I don't care how we win the games. I don't care. I don't care who's playing at what position at what time. And I just want us to get into the playoffs. Yeah. So. Buckner, will he deserve some of the accolades that comes his way with winning? Absolutely. Is he the reason for it?
Yeah, I got
he's a percentage. He's not the head coach. He's not the defensive coordinator. He's just the defensive line coach. But he's fun to watch coach. Yeah. He really is.
And I mean, and Ren, to go with your point, you still have to look at the talent of the team, James, for what you were saying, because I mean, think about the guys we had last year, outside of the starting guys. We're talking Silver Salinga, Ryan Russell, Will Clark. I think Will Clark became a starter.
Yeah, Will Clark was a starter.
Channing Ward bounced around in there quite a bit. I mean, these are guys that we have, and nothing against those guys. We have so solidly upgraded this defensive line. We have 2 starting caliber defensive lines, at least it seems to me, like ready to go as our entire defensive line.
Yeah. And besides that, sorry, real quick, all those people that are no longer on the team, on the defensive line, besides Clinton McDonald, none of them have jobs.
Yeah, that's definitely a true point. I think people. When you really go back and you look back at it, our defensive line was just so bad. Obviously last in sacks last year. I mean, kudos to Jason Light for just going out and getting the pieces to try and improve it. Vinny Curry, they signed to a big contract, swapped him for Robert Ayers essentially, and trading for Jason Pierre-Paul. I think as Bucs fans, getting 8.5 sacks. If JPP got 8.5 sacks, it's like what you guys were saying earlier. It's like, as long as we win, who cares if we get 10 sack guy or it doesn't matter. I think at this point we're just kind of sitting here thinking like, please just win, please.
Yeah.
That's all we want, But switching over to the offensive side, actually, so Jameis Winston and Deshaun Jackson have been trying to kind of build their chemistry this year after a poor season last year where Jackson only put up, I believe it was 700 yards and only a few touchdowns. Just from your guys' opinions, do you feel that this kind of do you feel that there has been chemistry growing between the two, or do you feel it's just kind of something? Because I know a lot of fans, especially lately, have been kind of clamoring for maybe a Deshaun Jackson trade. Do you feel that should happen, or do you feel it's like, no, Deshaun Jackson's a playmaker, he should be on this team because he can contribute very well to this offense, and that chemistry with Jameis Winston is growing? What do you guys feel about that kind of situation? And Red, we can start with you.
Sure. Well, I don't think Deshaun Jackson should be traded. Something that Brent likes to say, and I'm going to steal from it because I got to go first, is everybody has a price. If stupid comes knocking, answer the door. If somebody wants to give, say the Saints come knocking and they go, hey, we will give you Lattimore, our defensive rookie of the year, who still has 4 years under his rookie contract, for Deshaun Jackson, will you take it? Well, yeah, I will. Why? Because I got Hump, I got Godwin, and Jason Knight really likes this Watkins kid at a Penn. So we'll see how that goes. That's our deepest spot. Now, do I think we should trade Deshaun Jackson? I mean, why? Why should we trade Deshaun Jackson? Because you don't have chemistry with Jameis? One thing they're doing this year that a lot of people were clamoring for last year, and you could see it in OTAs, and I definitely saw it at minicamp, was they're putting Deshaun Jackson in the slot. They're putting him at different places to get the ball instead of just having him run these 9 routes all day long, and completing 1 out of 10. They're finding creative more ways to get his hand, get the ball in his hands and use his speed. So I like Deshaun Jackson on this team for this year. If stupid comes knocking, answer the door. But I think I fall into the camp of next year. No matter what he does, I think Jason Light is sort of set up for the future without Deshaun Jackson in 2019.
Mm-hmm. And
yeah. No, I mean, it's spot on. If stupid comes knocking, you got to answer the door. But no, we have no reason to trade him. He is clearly the number 2 best playmaker that we have on this team. You don't get rid of that guy on purpose. Somebody's got to give you a really sweet deal to make that happen. Where he's set up, he's well with the team. I said last year that I thought he and Jameis, I wanted to see that earlier in the year. I wanted to see them go during their off days and be throwing balls and doing some extra stuff. And I understand why that can't happen once you get into the season. But, we've seen the videos and we've heard the reports of Deshaun and Jameis getting out there and working on it. Is it going to come to fruition on the football field? Well, we won't know until the season gets here. Mm-hmm. So again, this is that whole I'm waiting and seeing till week 6. We gotta wait and see. We got to see what happens when they get out there. Maybe they've developed this amazing chemistry all of a sudden. They have 1 year under their belt. 1 year, and Jameis was hurt for, Ren, what was it? At least 6 games of it, and then sat out for 3 more?
Yeah.
I think he was out. I think he was out for 23 games last year.
Yeah. So, and 16 practices. It just so we'll see what happens. We'll see if the work that Jameis and Deshaun have put in bears fruit come the season. And if it doesn't, then Deshaun will probably not be here next year just because of the way the contract has worked and what we need to do. So, but I'm not looking to trade him unless stupid comes knocking. And if we get a really sweet deal out of it, I'm for it.
Yeah. And then
here's an.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I just want to sort of put a button on this. Deshaun Jackson, first off, Jameis Winston doesn't really build chemistry that easy. I think it was more of an anomaly with Mike Evans, Jameis's rookie year, that they hooked up so early. Him and Karen Brate work after practice, every single practice. Every single practice I've been there, Jameis and Cam Newton throw the ball for like an extra 20 minutes. That's why that chemistry is there. Who I say?
Cam Newton. He is not throwing balls with Cam Newton after practice.
That would be a sight to see, though.
Did you see that Cam Newton video? That kid's like, he's like, I'm gonna do it. And he gets in his face. He's like, you're gonna do what? He's like, nothing. No. Anyway, yeah. So Cameron Brate, not Cam Newton. I don't think he's a tight end. So, but once, and this is sort of the frustration I think Buck fans feel with Dirk Cutter and Mike Smith. Once you felt like as a fan, you're watching them not connect time after time after time after time on these deep balls. It's time to change it up. You know, it's like, okay, you as coaches, it becomes on you to get him the ball, to get Deshaun Jackson the ball another way. And so they're slow to change, you know, and I think that was a lot of frustration as last year about the play calling and the defensive scheme, where it felt like fans thought that Dirk Cutter and Mike Smith weren't just changing, like they weren't trying to fix the problem. Obviously they were, but now a year in, and I don't know if it's Todd Monken's influence with the offense about, Deshaun moving to slot, or it was a reevaluation with Jason Light, and they all sat down, all the coaches sat down and said, okay, this is what we need to do. But changes is coming. So even if Jameis and Deshaun Jackson chemistry on the deep ball doesn't get any better this year, it falls on the coaches to get Deshaun Jackson the ball where he can be dangerous.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha. I pretty much agree with most of that. And if kind of for our next topic here, we've just talked about all the coaches, kind of players and stuff like that. Kind of moving on then to the front office aspect of it. A lot of people praised Jason Light for this past offseason. He did a lot, and like what we said earlier, he had a very balanced offseason. I thought he took care of a very good amount of problems that the Bucs had from this past season. Do you guys, and this is kind of like a two-parter here, and Brent, we can start with you. Do you guys like what Jason Light did this offseason? And more specifically, what was your favorite move? What was your least favorite move? And then what's one move you would have done yourself this past offseason? And then Brent, we'll start with you.
I hate to sound like a broken record. I'm waiting till week 6 to judge the offseason moves.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Now that being said, I think my favorite move was his draft, where we went into the draft. We had a first rounder, we had a second rounder, no third rounder. He traded that one first round pick and picked up turned it into 3 second rounds and a third round pick. Like that is amazing. The movie Draft Day didn't have a draft move as good as what Jason Light pulled there. Yeah. And that to me was my favorite thing that I watched him do. By trading down just a couple of spots, he picks up those 2 extra ones, and then he later trades one of those extra ones that he has, and picks up another one plus that third rounder, or a fourth rounder, and then trades that back. And I mean, it was gold. It was amazing to watch. Mm-hmm. So that was my favorite move. What were your other questions?
So
least favorite,
and then what's something you would have done yourself?
I think my least favorite was,
If it's signing Chandler Catanzaro, that's okay.
No, it's not that. No. I kind of wanted to see him bring Pat Murray back, but I understand why not. Mm-hmm. This would make our friend Craig in Vegas super happy. I don't understand how Jay Hayes was the only coach who got fired this year.
I knew it.
I just don't. I don't get that. Bringing in Brinson Buckner, amazing. But
what's his name? I can't remember. You're talking about special teams coach, right?
No, I'm talking any of them. I don't understand how Brinson Buckner is the only
only new guy.
Yeah, the only new guy. Now, I understand, we moved Todd Monken over to the full-time offensive coordinator, which should have been, and Skylar Fulton moved over, and there was a couple of other little minor moves. But, I just don't understand why that's the only coaching move coming out of last year that we made, outside of just the idea of kind of Ren's whole point that he pointed out earlier of, okay, and who are you going to replace him with? Who is there? Maybe there wasn't a better person to replace him with, and this is where I want those Hard Knocks cameras or the all or nothing cameras in there, because I want to see those conversations where, Jason Light and Dirk Cutter are sitting down evaluating the coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just curious. I want to know what they were talking about. So, so that's a move that I wasn't a super fan of. I wanted to see more. And I don't know. Again, I'm waiting till week six to judge it, but scratching my head. I don't know. Maybe a little bit re-signing Charles Sims because I thought he was gone.
You can't take two. You only have one. Move on to the next part of the question.
What's that I would have done?
Yeah.
I probably. I don't know what it would have taken, but I really wanted Quentin Nelson, and I would have done what we needed to do to trade up to get him.
Yeah,
I don't know what that would have taken, and I wouldn't do stupid for it.
Yeah.
But if I could reasonably do Quentin Nelson, I would have traded to get him.
I loved Quentin Nelson so much.
Right.
And then Ren, what about you? Yeah.
No, go ahead.
So same thing for Brent. What was your favorite move for Jason Light? Least favorite move, and then what would you have done differently? And just kind of your overall thoughts on how Jason Light approached this offseason and just kind of what he did this offseason.
Sure. I think my favorite move, there were so many. I mean, with the whole revamping of the defensive line, bringing, Jensen at center. So I guess my favorite, because those are sort of hard to, you can't really gauge those yet. Those guys haven't played a down for us yet. I guess it's going to have to be locking up Mike Evans during the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
Something that, he no longer has to worry about, and he'll be a Buck for a long time, and I think everyone's happy about that. By the end of this year and definitely by the end of next year, he'll probably have all of the major receiving records as a Buccaneer, and he'll be like 25 years old. Then I guess the move the least favorite was, I was going to say Charles Sims. That's why I got mad at Brent when he brought it up. Now, it's not that I dislike Charles Sims, but I understand why he was there. They brought him in day before the draft to give them flexibility. They kind of knew what they were doing in the first round. They knew it wasn't going to be a running back, on their board. There's no way Saquon Barkley was going to drop to him. So they were probably thinking logically like it was going to be Vea or Derwin James. So they brought Charles Sims in just in case something weird and funky happened in the second round, where they didn't get, their top choices of running back. So you had something to fall back on. Like Brett said, I like Charles Sims in space. I just don't know right now, especially last year, that the team is creative enough to get him the ball where it needs to be for him to be effective on the offense. I don't care that every time he's in the game they throw him the ball like it's going to be a pass. I don't care. Like, execute the play. I said this a few times on our pod when this sort of subject has come up. It's like, I don't remember when the Patriots came back and beat the Falcons in that Super Bowl. I don't remember the Patriots running the ball the whole second half of the game. Mm-hmm. And everybody knew it, but they just executed. So I really don't have a problem with that. I just kind of I thought it was something that was just sort of a bad taste in the mouth. Charles Sims has had one good year, and he's had 3 substandard years, in my opinion. But now he's back, and if they could figure out how to use him, okay. And the move I would have made, what I would have done, I probably would have found. I would have gone and got a safety this offseason. There's still a lot of them out there.
Oh yeah, Trey Boston, Eric Reed.
Thank you. Yep.
Kenny Vaccaro. There's still some names out there.
Exactly, and I that would be the one I would make is get. I like Vaccaro the best out of those 3, followed by Reed, then Boston. So that would probably be something that if I was GM, I'd be taking a serious look at and probably would have pulled the trigger on by now. Now, if you've listened to the PewterCast and had heard Brent and I ever talk about Jason Light, we're big fans of him. I wrote an article last year at the beginning of training camp how Jason Light had flipped over the roster by 93%. And that was at the beginning of training camp, and that was like just in like 3 years, I think. And if OJ Howard, and it was something like 9 or 18 out of 22 starters, not including kickers and punters. And if like OJ Howard ended up starting halfway through the year, then I would have bumped it up like. And I think threw McNichols in there too. Whoops. It would have bumped it up to like 20 out of 22 starters in 3 years. So I think any failures as the Buccaneers as a whole organization, as that equates to wins on the field, if you start going down the list whose fault it is, I think Jason Light is the last name on that list.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then last topic. This one, I'm sure you guys are probably really, really, really tired of hearing about it. And Ren, we'll start with you. It's about the Jameis Winston Uber incident.
Okay.
Okay. So, obviously, this situation it's been in the back of Bucs fans' mind pretty much the entire offseason, you know, and nobody at this point really knows what's going to happen. One, I guess you should, like, and it's obviously it's really hard to call like kind of a situation of like, oh, is he going to get suspended? Is he going to get suspended? Nobody knows. My question to both you guys, and Ren, we can start with you, is let's say, obviously the worst case scenario, let's say Jameis gets suspended from 1 to 4 games, you know, and at maximum 4 games. Let's just assume that's the worst of the worst scenarios. Do you feel that that's a season-breaking punishment for the Buccaneers, where it's like, without Jameis Winston, we can't go out there and win these first 4 games? Or do you kind of feel that, you know, if it's Bucs fans' worst nightmare, Jameis Winston's out the first 4 games of the year, do you feel Ryan Fitzpatrick can come in and still keep our hopes alive? Because, you know, last year he ended up going 2-1 once Jameis Winston did finally sit out for a couple of games due to his shoulder injury. Do you guys trust Ryan Fitzpatrick as a backup, or do you feel that they should maybe try and bring in somebody else, or even give Ryan Griffin an opportunity?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. I will start with, I don't care who's the quarterback for the team. These first 4 games, it's all going to fall on the defensive shoulders. You know, I don't think these teams are going to come out and probably put points up. Talking about Pittsburgh, Philly, New Orleans. These items are going to put points up. So the defense are going to have to, you know, if I'm looking like they keep it around 24 points, I feel like they've done their job. This is how high-powered these offenses are. And I don't really think it matters who's quarterback, either Jameis Winston or Ryan Fitzpatrick. If the defense doesn't show up, the Bucs could go 1-3. It doesn't matter who's at the quarterback. Now, do I trust Ryan Fitzpatrick? Yeah. You know, I've also said many times, and Brent as well, you know, on the pod, that Ryan Fitzpatrick looked awful in training camp. I mean, awful. Ryan Griffin looked so much better. And if you took like draft picks out of it and who they were and took all their names off the back of their jerseys, you know, and you watched Jameis, Fitzpatrick, and Ryan Griffin run the offense, Ryan Griffin looked the best of the 3 last year during training camp. I mean, and it really wasn't that close. It really wasn't. Now, we've talked to, you know, Trevor Sickman from Pewter Report since then, and he brought up a good point. He's like, Ryan Griffin is not really a guy that can drive the ball downfield like Jameis can. You know, in Dirk Cutter's vertical offense, you know, Jameis takes a drop back, put his foot in his ground, and he can drive the ball down the field 40 yards, you know, on a rope. And that's where he excels. You know, when he starts to get air under the ball, that's, you know, where his percentages start to drop off. But do I think Ryan Fitzpatrick can win those games? Yeah, I do. Do I trust him? Yeah, because from what I saw, when he gets in there, he gets it. He's a vet. You know, he's going to do some vet things to keep us in the game, and he's not going to lose the game for us. That's for sure. And then, what was the final part of it?
The off-season situation, kind of like that.
Oh, about like how do I feel about the Uber thing altogether?
Yeah, just kind of what, I guess if you had to give your own specific opinion, what do you feel is going to happen?
Oh, geez, I don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't. I think he'll probably get some type of punishment because the language in the collective bargaining agreement about, hurting the shield, bruising the shield, the NFL shield, it's bad for the label, it's bad for the brand. That language is so vague that Roger Goodell can pretty much do whatever he wants. And I think that falls on the Players Association. I mean, as a union, it's your job to protect your members, and letting that type of language go through and let one person, and you don't even, like, your side doesn't even get a voice in it. Just letting one person who's not on your side decide to take players off the field, and basically it takes away paychecks, is an absolute failure as an institution, as a union actually exists. Like, it is the biggest, fumble that the players union I can remember has ever done. Now, what's going to happen? Who knows? And who to blame? Who knows? There's concrete evidence. It's Jameis's fault. If it's bruised the shield, it's the Players Association's fault.
Mm-hmm.
But I honestly, do I think we have a better chance to win these games with Jameis and Ryan Fitzpatrick? Yes, absolutely. But once again, I hate to sound like a broken record. If this new defense doesn't show up, I don't care who's playing quarterback. Yeah. You're not going to win.
That's true. And Brent, same kind of question.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll piggyback off what Ren was just saying. I'll kind of work backwards through your questions. Mm-hmm. To me, I don't know. The question of what will happen versus what should happen are two very, very different questions in this situation. Yeah. And what I think should happen is nothing. Because what you're setting up a precedent for is anyone can accuse any NFL player, and all of a sudden that NFL player, I don't want to say snap because it's taken so dang long, but all of a sudden any NFL player is suspended because it bruised the shield, because somebody else just said, hey, this guy did this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you could say, well, because Jameis didn't report it to the team or blah, 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 or whatever. But, I mean, Ren's right. It's so vague. And when we went into the locker room, Ren, they have the player conduct policy written on the wall, mm-hmm. and you can see it plain as day. It's so incredibly vague.
I will just say, be a good person, and just leave it at that.
That's it.
And hope nobody says anything bad about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really, so I don't think anything should happen, because you can't prove it one way or the other. It's his word versus hers, So, yeah, I don't know. I don't. And it might be a little bit because he's my guy. Jameis is my quarterback. So,
yeah,
maybe I'm a little bit biased, and I don't make any apologies for that. I got to tell you this. When I was at minicamp last week, was it last week, Ren? I think it was last week. Looking at Griffin, Fitzpatrick, and Jameis all together, just looking at their body type and how they were holding themselves and their physical musculature and, just visually the eye test, I thought Ryan Griffin looked the most like an NFL quarterback out of the three of them. I really did.
He looked the most Bo Allen-esque.
So, but is Ryan Fitzpatrick, going to, if you got to go into a game, I'm going to take the guy who's a veteran who has experience over the guy who looks the part.
Who's never taken an NFL snap.
And who's never dressed for an NFL game. I still think that's true. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's never actually worn an NFL uniform during a game. Put on pads during a game.
That's crazy.
It's crazy and we've kept him on the roster this whole time. But I really want to see Ryan Griffin go. I want to see what he can do.
Yeah.
And there was enough evidence to me from last year until Ren's favorite player,
Cole Gardner,
messed up and let Griffin get hurt. And Cole Gardner, whatever reasons, back on the team this year. So
yeah, it's so
Griffin, look out.
It's so weird with Ryan Griffin, because everybody, especially this past offseason, has kind of had this mindset of what's going on with Ryan Griffin? Why he hasn't done anything for us since we brought him in? you know, and I just think it's kind of like he hasn't had the opportunity yet. Obviously, the coaching staff sees something in him, otherwise they wouldn't have kept him for so long, you know.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
I do believe this. I believe 100%. Had he not gotten hurt last year during the preseason game, Ryan Fitzpatrick would have been cut from the team, and Griffin would have been our backup quarterback last year.
Yeah.
I have no doubt in my mind that that's what would have happened.
It was definitely trending that way.
Yeah. And then just kind of the last part of that question, Brent, if obviously we have no idea what's going to happen, but if Jameis does get suspended, would you prefer, like, do you trust Ryan Fitzpatrick to go out there and win games, or are you kind of the same with Ren? It's like defense. If the defense doesn't show up, then none of this will matter, you know?
Both. I 100% agree with Ren. If defense doesn't show up, then, you know, suck. It's not going to go. But I do trust Ryan Fitzpatrick to go out there and, as Ren said, not lose the game. I will never forget being in Raymond James Stadium last year when Ryan Fitzpatrick came onto the field during an injury situation, and there was just this weird calm throughout the stadium. Like it's like he's got it. He's fine. It'll be okay. You know, that's what Ryan Fitzpatrick brought to the table, and you heard that kind of echoed from the players. You heard that echoed from the coaching staff. I heard that echoed from various podcasts. There was just this. He just put you at ease. And, you know, yes, I'll take that. And can we win? Listen, there's enough talent around the quarterback that you can have that guy who's just a game manager. You know, he doesn't have to be a special talent. He can be a mediocre quarterback as long as he doesn't lose you the game. There's enough talent around the quarterback that if everybody shows up, we can win games. And damn it, I think we can beat the Eagles, and I think we can beat the Steelers. And there's not a game on this schedule, as hard as it is, there's not a game that we can't win.
No, like
we can win every single one of these games. We could go 16-0 this season. I'm not saying that we will, and I don't think we will. I'm not saying that as a prediction.
Whoa, what just happened?
Brett.
But we can't beat every single team that's on our schedule this year.
Yeah, I mean, whenever the schedule first came out, I remember I made a video talking about it, and everybody's been freaking out about the first 3 games. You know, we play the Saints, and then we play the Eagles, and then we play the Steelers in Monday Night Football. It's like, we're screwed. It's like, well, no, technically, you know, we can win any of these games. You know, never think that the Bucs can't win any of these games. You just have to have a mindset of more like, okay, it's possible, because it's possible, you know?
Right.
So you just really have to just change the mentality in that kind of way. But anyway, Ren, Brent, thank you guys so much for being on. First time ever doing a show with you guys. You know, thank you so much for coming on, just being a part of this. For everybody who's still watching the live stream right now, all 26 of you guys, if you want to go check out the podcast, the link to that will be down in the description below, as well as links to the PewterCast YouTube channel, as well as the Twitters of the PewterCast, and Brent and Ren's personal Twitter accounts as well. So if you guys want to go follow all of those, be greatly appreciated. Ren, Brent, do you guys have any final words before we go ahead and close out this live stream? Just overall? No, Brent, Ren, how about you?
Go Bucs.
Go Bucs, right?
Go Bucs.
All right.
Oh, no, sorry. I was waiting for Brent to go. I always like to wrap things up.
Yeah,
Sorry,
you gotta
a bit
say it,
long-winded. Oh, I have to say it? Okay, I'll say it.
Say it.
All right, I'll save it for the end. You calm down. I think it's exciting. I mean, no, we're right in the dark. Like, you know, we've said we're in the dark days of NFL football, but it's exciting. You can definitely feel, if you're a Bucs fan out there and you're watching this, you can feel it's not desperation, it's competition. It's like they're getting after it. It's a totally different feel, like Brent's ticket guy said. I mean, it's almost like they've got this, they're a little angry. They got a chip on their shoulder. Like we really screwed the pooch last year. And the guys that Jason Light went out to get, you heard about it, 100 times, grit, tenacity, win at all costs type of guys. It is a different feeling, and I think it's something to get excited about. Are they going to go 16-0? I don't think so. But it's I think we're in for a much better year. I think it's going to be much more fun to watch. I think the defense is going to have a far superior product out on the field. And I really think in the 4th year, and thanks to mostly Ryan Fitzpatrick's sort of calmness, I think Jameis is going to put it all together this year and have his best year as a Buccaneer. So the arrow is trending up. Brent alluded to, I have to say it, and this is what I always say at the end of our podcast. I know the link to my Twitter account will be there, but if you do want to follow me on Twitter, because it's sort of just one speech, it's at Rendax, REN_DAXT, and I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football.
There you go. So thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. If you're watching this, post and you have any other suggestions for live stream opportunities or just overall video content, let us know down in the comments section below. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next video or live stream, but until then, goodbye for now, guys. See ya.